In 2016, the age of coal in Silverdale was landscaped into fields and housing estates. Over there, the guide pointed, pausing briefly at each location, was the winding gear, the spoil tips, the railway line. I nodded, trying to build a picture of Silverdale Colliery, the now demolished buildings and people in fluorescent jackets hurrying between them. I fastened the button on my coat. Late November afternoons were short. You wrapped up, expected to feel the damp wheedle its way through to your skin. It was a great place to grow up, a man told us. The machinery was like one big playground. Of course, you weren't supposed to go near it. You were in for it then. You get a right telling off. They'd take you back to your parents. I thought of the den I'd made in the hedge line at the bottom of the field by the disused railway line, and the fuss my parents had made when they found out about it. Yes, I said, that's the last thing you'd want. We walked up the hill on large concrete slabs, industrial strength for the constant thunder rumble of lorries which made the journey from pit to spoil heap when the mine was operational. It was breezy on the summit, a fresh wind whipping along the tops of the hills from the north. From here, the view stretched along the valley towards the flat-topped retail units of Newcastle. The guide passed round an old photo taken from this spot. A sea of smoke with the spire of St. Luke's Church peeping above the cloud. I thought of the people working below in the bitter, caustic smell, their scarves wrapped tight for protection. I'd like that sharp tang that caught on the roof of your mouth as you shoveled coal into the scuttle. I used to watch Mum making the fire, placing the lumps in the grate, interspersing them with firelighters which she formed from rolling sheets of newspaper round the knitting needle. Once, she made an extra long one with a looped handle like a sword and a paper hat to go with it. When she wasn't looking, I reached out and touched the shiny black surface. I was intrigued. I'd heard that Auntie Val had eaten a piece before Pam was born. When Mum turned round, her face fell. You've been playing with the coal again. Wipe your hands, don't get it on the door. Oh, for goodness sake. In winter evenings, when the fire was lit, we edged our chairs a little closer and watched the shadows flicker on the hearthrug. Of course, it doesn't do to get too sentimental, another man said to a group passing me on the path. It must have been hell at times working in the pit. I pushed aside my thoughts of the cosy side of coal. Our footsteps quickened as we descended towards a large lake. A group of duck huddled near the shoreline. Warmth from their bodies melted the thin film of ice. A viewing area jutted out over the water, the level unusually low. We've got a problem down there, said the ranger. An invasive species we're trying to flush out. A laminated notice was attached to a block of wood. The water level, it said, was being reduced temporarily. The word underlined several times with a ballpoint pen. The monster in the lake was New Zealand pygmyweed. Its vegetation threatened to cover everything with a dense, choking blanket. You should see it in summer, he said. The grass is full of wildflowers. He pointed to a gritty slope. It's called the Void, the old open-cast mine. We get orchids there, and skylarks. In the thin autumn light, it did not look promising. Birches clung to the scree, tufts of pale grasses stirred in the breeze. A fence circled the base of the slope, and a far-off metal tower loomed like a guard over the top. No access? I asked. Unstable land. As our group returned to the visitor centre, I considered the shifting nature of land, how hard it was to understand it when we obscured it with the contours of buildings. The opposite seemed to be happening here. In 19 years since the pit closed, the land had shaken off its weight and started to breathe. At the gate to the Enterprise Park, there was a muddy depression where the ground had been churned up. I stepped on a twig, pushed it deep into the earth. The mud coated my boot and seeped into the eyelets.
What do you want, you? Come for a job. Oh, does your father work here? No. Oh, I don't know then. That was about the interview. They send you in and say, go with Jack. Off we go then, and they take you on the face. And of course, it was only 4 foot high. Well, the face was about 150 yards long. And crawling along, you know, I mean, it's hard work. So what you do if the conveyor was running that way, you jump on the conveyor like this, go you down, and jump off before you got to the coal cutter. Of course, all these lads and blokes older than me, you run off the face, come on, let's go, like, you know, come on, jump on here. And they jump on the conveyor belt, and what's that? Come on, jump on, we'll show you where to get off. Go out and jump on. And of course, sometimes it was only this. And they go, get down, get to the left-hand side, move your backs to one side, okay. And I'm thinking, my God, and I don't know where, because they know, and you're whizzing along in the dark with your lamp on, and there's like a row of them in front of you, and some behind, and you're looking at when they're going to get, you think, yeah, my God, what's the, they're going, get down, and you're getting down further and further, and then all of a sudden you see them whoop and jump off. It's like frogs grabbing hold of anything. Honestly, but you get used to it, see, because they always say a bad ride's better than a good walk.
The beats and hisses of industry past, slivers through the mist, along the ice-covered abyss, tumbling down from the grass-covered coal slag heaps. From the frost, a silhouetted group ventures alongside memories of a mother waiting at home in front of the fire for the children who play alongside the fence, watching the yellow trucks churn up the hill, then follow the men who ignite the heart of a community. Fumes are plenty and work a luxury, the landscape as torn as the people. But as years pass, flowers rise. There is life above frozen oblivion, wonderful and thriving, down the drunken streets of a Friday night, partying at the football fields and snogging at the church gates.
Grown up in the valleys, she had a weakness for working class men. She loved the way they would seam stories of adoration, stitching one improbable emotion onto another until they stretched suspended in the air around them. Men with names like Gareth, Geraint, Gwyn, all those G beginnings. She loved them so much that when her own son was born, she would call him Gwilym, ignoring her mother's sniggering down the phone at this old man's choice. Years before that, one Christmas Eve, 20-year-old Caris had sat in the pub for a moment with a friend and her father. A cheerful man who looked like Bruce Forsyth, he was a retired fire officer for the region. Something, the weather, the whiskey, the music on the sound system, took him back. Describing how they had lifted body after body of the children buried in the collapsed spoil tip of Aberfan, he began to cry. Caris's aunt was a disaster survivor. A teacher at the infant school, she had apparently got her class out through a window. Caris was unsure of the details. It was only in middle age that she learned that her grandfather, lame from a football accident as a young man, had gone to help with the digging. Everyone did, was the brief explanation offered by her father. Caris knew about coal came 10, 20 and 30 years after Aberfan. The slag heaps which framed her childhood, black in Hirwaun, white in Merthyr, gradually disappearing as they were cleared or landscaped to look like hills. The miners' strike and the playground taunts of scab, whilst the children of the striking fathers stood in silence, waiting for their free school meals. Caris's family had teachers, not miners, but it was still poor. All the same, her parents scratched a few pennies here and there and gave tins of food to the cause. They are starving, her mother had said. The sight of food banks 3 decades on reminded Caris of an unhealable grief. Some things you should never get over. If a lost love can chip you to the bone, what do you do when there are no chipping places left? Whole families marooned in villages on the side of mountains. Caris's village made the headlines when the miners bought back the mine with their redundancy pay. Hirwaun, long meadow, with the fields of fine, smokeless coal underneath. At the time, Caris had been dating a miner's son. His father decided not to take the risk, opting to work for a neighbouring open cast. His mother was afraid there would be fighting at the party held at the pub where Caris worked, serving the men who came in with an eyeliner of coal, drinking 1 pint quickly to quench the thirst, and then slowing for the second. No man wants their son to be a miner, one of them told her that night. Still, they raised a glass to militancy. When the Tower Colliery finally closed, it was because it was all mined out. The newspaper photos of the empty shower stalls, a ghostly reminder of South Wales's last deep pit. A dream of generations in the dust.
He remembers Joan. He remembers kissing her by the pit. He remembers the way Joan swayed in the low light of the afternoon. He doesn't remember Joan's name. He remembers the pit where they kissed. He remembers the smell of sulphur, the smell of, whoa, that one you, Fred. He remembers the smell of coal and the taste of Joan's lips. He doesn't remember Joan Felicity, dying. He remembers the strange taste of her breath at morning, at midnight. He remembers the constant smell of the pit. He remembers the smoke on Tuesdays. He remembers the pit closing. He remembers the strikes. He remembers the canaries he kept, pit canaries. He remembers the small yellow feathers. He doesn't remember their names, Billingston, Liver, Poe. He remembers 1986. He remembers the words, modern technology.